The vibration against the mahogany nightstand was a dull, insect-like buzz that sliced right through the silence of the room. I reached for my phone, the sudden blue light stinging my tired eyes. It was a message from my daughter Sarah. The text read, "Mom, I know you paid $250,000 for this house, but Beatrice doesn't want you at Christmas dinner. She says your cooking smells too traditional and you make her anxious. We hope you understand." I read the words once, then twice. By the third time, the characters on the screen stopped being simple pixels and formed a very clear picture of my current reality. My name is Patricia Vance. I am 64 years old, a widow who spent 40 years teaching high school math, living frugally to build a safety net. That net had been completely drained to buy this spacious suburban home for Sarah and her husband David. There were no tears. I didn't clutch my chest or gasp in agony. At 64, you realize that crying over someone else's disrespect is a terrible waste of hydration. Instead, a profound, icy clarity washed over me. For 6 months, I had bitten my tongue. I had watched David's mother Beatrice march into this house every weekend, rearranging my furniture and treating me like a hired maid. I had watched Sarah nod along, too terrified of Beatrice's disapproval to defend her own mother. I looked at the digital clock glowing a neon red in the dark. 3:06 a.m. I typed a single simple reply. All right. I hit send and set the phone face down. I didn't ask for an explanation. I didn't beg for my seat at the table. I simply threw off the heavy duvet and placed my feet on the cold, hardwood floor. Society conditions mothers to be endlessly forgiving, to absorb every blow for the sake of family harmony. But respect should never be negotiable. That night, sitting in the dark, I decided I was entirely done being used. The house was deathly quiet as I pulled my large canvas suitcase from the top shelf of the closet. I moved with practiced precision the way I used to silently grade papers while my late husband slept. I folded my clothes, packed my toiletries, and gathered my important folders, the deed to the house, my banking information, and my birth certificate. I walked out of my bedroom and down the long carpeted hallway. Passing the master suite, I could hear the faint sound of David snoring. They were sleeping soundly, completely unaware that the foundation of their comfortable life was currently rolling a suitcase toward the front door. In the kitchen, the moonlight caught the sleek stainless steel of the espresso machine. It was a high-end Model 1 I had purchased specifically because Sarah complained about the cost of daily coffee runs. Beside it sat the expensive ceramic bowls Beatrice insisted we buy because my old ones were too rustic. I unplugged the espresso machine, wrapped its cord neatly, and placed it right into my trunk. If I wasn't welcome at Christmas dinner, my appliances certainly weren't staying to cater it. I walked back inside to grab my winter coat. I stood in the center of the living room observing the space. The velvet sofa, the Persian rug, the custom window treatments, all funded by my retirement account. I had bought this house outright in cash. It was legally mine top to bottom. They were simply living here because I allowed it. I left my house key on the granite kitchen island. I didn't leave a dramatic note. I didn't write a guilt-tripping letter about my sacrifices. Silence is often louder than any shouting match. I stepped out into the crisp December air, the frost crunching softly under my boots. I loaded my car, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway without a single backward glance. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. By 8:00 a.m., I had checked into a furnished extended stay apartment on the other side of the city. It was modest, clean, and completely quiet. I unpacked my few belongings, brewed a cup of coffee using my rescued machine, and opened my laptop on the small dining table. It was time to perform some necessary financial pruning. I logged into my primary bank account. For months, I had been the invisible engine keeping Sarah and David's lifestyle afloat. I navigated to the auto pay section. With a few deliberate clicks, I canceled the electricity, the water bill, and the high-speed fiber optic internet. I removed my credit card from their joint Amazon account, the food delivery apps, and the premium cable package Beatrice relied on for her daily soap operas. Next, I opened the digital folder containing the house documents. When we found the property, Sarah had begged me to help with the down payment, but the mortgage rates were atrocious. So I used my entire life savings to buy it outright. The deed was exclusively in the name of Patricia Vance. They paid me a tiny fraction of rent each month, which barely covered the property taxes. I felt a sudden, profound sense of relief. I wasn't trapped. I was the one holding all the cards. I had just forgotten to play them. I spent the rest of the morning researching corporate real estate buyers companies that purchased homes for cash as is without the hassle of open houses or real estate agents. I uploaded the property details, the square footage, and some recent photos I had on my phone. The website promised an offer within 24 hours. I closed the laptop, feeling lighter than I had in years. I decided to take a walk to the nearby bakery, treating myself to a fresh croissant. My phone remained silent in my pocket, but I knew the peace was strictly temporary. The screen of my phone lit up at precisely 4:15 p.m. the next day. The caller ID flashed Sarah's face. I let it ring 3 times before sliding the green button. Mom. Where are you? Sarah's voice was a mixture of confusion and irritation. And why is the internet down? Beatrice is here early for the weekend and she can't connect her tablet. I took a slow sip of my peppermint tea. I moved out Sarah. I'm at an apartment across town. There was a heavy pause on the line. You moved out. Just like that, Mom. You're overreacting to the text. Beatrice just wants a cohesive aesthetic for the dinner. You don't have to throw a tantrum. I'm not throwing a tantrum, I replied evenly. I agreed with you. You asked me not to attend, so I removed myself from the situation entirely. As for the internet, I canceled the account. I don't live there anymore, so I have no need for Wi-Fi at that address. You canceled the Wi-Fi, Sarah gasped. In the background, I could hear Beatrice's sharp, reedy voice demanding to know what was going on. Mom put it back in your name. David works from home on Mondays. David is 32 years old, I stated firmly. He can set up his own utility accounts. The electricity and water will also be shut off by Friday if you two don't transfer them. I suggest you call the companies soon. Beatrice snatched the phone. Patricia, this is incredibly petty. You are deliberately trying to ruin our weekend because you're jealous of my relationship with Sarah. I chuckled, a low, genuine sound that seemed to catch Beatrice off guard. I'm not jealous, Beatrice. I'm just balancing my budget. Have a lovely, cohesive Christmas. I ended the call and immediately blocked Beatrice's number. I left Sarah's unblocked, but I muted her notifications. I placed the phone back on the table and picked up my book. The apartment was quiet, and for the first time in months, I felt entirely at peace. The following morning, an email chimed in my inbox. The corporate property buyer had reviewed the details of the house. I opened the message and scanned the numbers. They were offering $265,000 cash. It was a fair market price enough to recoup my original investment and give me a comfortable cushion for my next chapter. There were no open houses required, no staging, no signs on the front lawn, just a simple digital transfer of ownership and a final move-out date. I clicked the link to review the contract. The terms were straightforward. I would sign the digital paperwork, verify my identity, and the funds would be held in escrow until the transfer date. I selected a closing date, December 23rd. The company would take official possession the day before Christmas Eve, meaning the occupants would receive an official notice to vacate from the new corporate management. I typed my full legal name, Patricia Helen Vance, into the digital signature box. I didn't feel a shred of guilt. A house is just drywall wood and roofing shingles. A home is built on mutual respect and care. That house on Elm Street had become nothing more than a free luxury hotel for people who viewed me as an inconvenience. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah again. Mom, the electric company says they need a $300 deposit to start a new account because David's credit score is too low. You need to call them and co-sign. I cannot do that. Sarah? I answered calmly. But we don't have $300 extra this week. We just bought a $500 organic turkey and imported decorations for Beatrice's dinner. Then I suggest you return the decorations I advised, or ask Beatrice to pay the deposit since she is practically living there. You know Beatrice is on a fixed income. Her wealth is all tied up in family trusts. Sarah whined. That sounds like a complicated financial situation, I noted smoothly. Good luck sorting it out. I hung up again. The reality was setting in, and I wasn't going to cushion their fall. 2 days later, I knew Sarah and David would be at their respective offices, and Beatrice usually spent her Tuesday mornings at her country club playing bridge. I drove my car to the house parking a block away, just in case. I used the spare key I kept in my purse to unlock the front door. The house smelled of expensive pine candles and expensive roast coffee. Beatrice's influence was everywhere. She had draped her cashmere throws over my chairs and replaced my family photos on the mantel with generic modern art prints. I ignored it all and walked straight to the dining room. I unfolded the cardboard boxes I had brought with me. I carefully packed my grandmother's antique silverware, wrapping each piece in soft cloth. I took down the original oil painting from the hallway, a piece I had purchased on a trip to Italy 30 years ago. I rolled up the authentic Persian rug from the study, dragging it out to my trunk. I worked efficiently, taking only what explicitly belonged to me, things I had owned long before I bought this house. I left their cheap modern furniture, but I took the soul of the house away. By the time I was finished, the rooms echoed slightly. The spaces looked sterile, like a model home waiting for a family that didn't exist. Before leaving, I walked into the kitchen. I took a plain white envelope from my bag. Inside was a printed copy of the final utility cancellation confirmations. I placed it squarely on the granite counter, right next to the empty space where the espresso machine used to sit. I locked the door behind me, feeling the heavy brass key in my hand. I walked to the nearest storm drain on the street corner and dropped the key through the iron grate. I heard it clink against the concrete far below. I didn't need it anymore. The transaction was complete both financially and emotionally. I was sitting by the window of a small local cafe near my new apartment, enjoying a slice of lemon pound cake, when the bell above the door chimed aggressively. I didn't need to look up to know who it was. Sarah had tracked me down, using the family location sharing app on our phones, an oversight I silently scolded myself for. Sarah marched over to my table, her face flushed with anger. Trailing closely behind her was Beatrice, wrapped in a heavy wool coat, looking utterly scandalized. "You stole our things!" Sarah practically shouted, drawing the attention of the barista. I wiped my mouth delicately with a napkin. "Lower your voice, Sarah." And I didn't steal anything. I took my grandmother's silver, my painting, and my rug. You don't own them. You left the house, looking bare. Beatrice is hosting her book club there tomorrow. Beatrice stepped forward, her posture rigid. "Patricia, this behavior is entirely unacceptable. You are acting like a petulant child. I demand you return the rug immediately. The acoustics in the study are ruined without it." I looked at Beatrice, really looking at her. She was a woman who survived on the illusion of power, using other people's resources to maintain her status. "No," I said, simply. Beatrice blinked clearly, unused to the word. "Excuse me," I said. "No. My belongings stay with me, just like my money stays with me." I turned my attention back to my daughter. "Sarah, I am turning off my location sharing right after this conversation." Do not follow me again. You are adults. Act like it. Mom, you can't just abandon us right before Christmas. Sarah's voice cracked, shifting from anger to manipulation. We need your help paying for the heating oil. You have, Beatrice? I smiled, picking up my purse. She has such a refined aesthetic. I'm sure she can figure out how to keep you warm. I left a $5 bill on the table for my coffee and walked out, deleting the tracking app from my phone before I even reached my car. Christmas Eve arrived with a blanket of fresh white snow. I decided to treat myself. I booked a table for one at a high-end Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place with white tablecloths and quiet string music. I wore a deep emerald dress I hadn't worn in years. I ordered a glass of expensive red wine and a plate of truffle risotto. I was halfway through my meal when my phone began vibrating frantically on the table. It was Sarah. Call after call, followed by a rapid-fire string of text messages. Mom, call me now. Who is Mr. Henderson? Mom, please pick up. I took a slow sip of my wine, savoring the rich flavor, before finally opening her messages. I knew exactly who Mr. Henderson was. He was the local property manager for the corporate real estate firm that now owned the house on Elm Street. I tapped the screen and called her back. She answered on the first ring, her voice entirely hysterical. Mom. A man just knocked on our door. He taped a notice to the wood. He said the property has changed ownership and we have 14 days to vacate. That sounds correct, I replied smoothly. The sale closed yesterday. Sale. You sold our house, she screamed. I sold my house, Sarah. The one I bought with my money. You were just guests, and frankly, you were terrible hosts. But tomorrow is Christmas. Beatrice's whole family is coming here in the morning. Then I suggest you start packing instead of roasting that organic turkey I advised. The new management company is very strict about unapproved tenants. They will change the locks on January 7th. You can't do this to us, she sobbed. Where are we going to go? Beatrice says, we can't stay with her. Her condo is too small. I looked out the restaurant window at the snow falling gracefully under the streetlights. That sounds like a conversation you should have with Beatrice. Merry Christmas, Sarah. The days following Christmas were a masterclass in watching an illusion shatter. Sarah called me multiple times, leaving lengthy, tearful voicemails. Without my financial buffer, the reality of their situation had crashed down on them hard. David, it turned out, was furious, not just at me, but at Beatrice. According to Sarah's frantic messages, David realized that his mother had driven away the only actual financial security they had. Beatrice, stripped of the beautiful venue she used to show off to her friends, quickly distanced herself. When Sarah and David begged to move into her spare room, Beatrice claimed her homeowners association didn't allow long-term guests. She abandoned them the moment they stopped being a useful prop for her social life. I listened to these voicemails while packing boxes in my temporary apartment. I felt a twinge of sadness for my daughter, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of self-respect. I had spent my entire life being a shock absorber for other people's bad decisions. Removing myself from that equation was the healthiest thing I had ever done. On New Year's Eve, Sarah finally managed to reach me on the phone. Her voice was flat, exhausted. We found a one-bedroom apartment, she mumbled. It's small. We had to sell the dining table to afford the deposit. I'm glad you found shelter, I said neutrally. Mom, I'm sorry. I was so stupid. I just wanted her to like me so badly. I know, Sarah, I answered softly. But you sacrificed your own mother to buy her approval. You have to live with the consequences of that choice. I am your mother, but I am not your doormat. Will I ever see you again? She asked, her voice cracking. Eventually, I said, When you learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. Until then, I need space. I hung up gently, drawing a firm, permanent line in the sand. By early February, the bitter cold of winter was completely behind me. I didn't stay in the city. I used the cash from the house sale to buy a bright, airy 2-bedroom condominium in a quiet coastal town in South Carolina. The weather was mild, the people were polite, and the ocean was only a 10-minute walk from my front door. My new home was decorated exactly how I wanted it. No modern sterile art, no overpriced cashmere throws, just my grandmother's silver on the dining table, my Italian painting in the hallway, and a comfortable worn leather armchair where I read my books every morning. I started taking a pottery class at the local community center. I made friends with women my own age, women who had also spent their lives raising children and were finally discovering who they were outside of being a mother or a wife. Sarah texted me occasionally. The messages were polite, cautious, and brief. She told me David was working overtime and that they hadn't spoken to Beatrice since moving out. I replied with kind, encouraging words, but I never offered money and I never offered a plane ticket for her to visit. Our relationship was healing, but the scar tissue was thick, and I was fiercely protective of my new boundaries. One afternoon, sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, I watched the seagulls circle over the water. I thought about the text message that had woken me up at 3:00 a.m. all those months ago. They thought they could shrink me down until I disappeared completely just to make room for someone else's ego. Instead, they handed me the key to my own freedom. I am Patricia Vance. I am entirely alone. I am in complete control of my life, and for the first time in a very long time, I am perfectly happy.